After a particularly upsetting manifestation shortly after a sandwich lunch on Wednesday, or sixth day at Hood de Vries, Mrs. Nevinson announced that she could not stand this kind of life any longer, and intended to return to New Amsterdam by the steamer on the following morning. She was in earnest about it too, and it took Mr. Nevinson and I nearly an hour to convince her that it was imperative for all of us to be here. It was another moment of decision in the story of
My bones and my flute.
Mr. Nevinson told his wife, "Returning to New Amsterdam won't help matters, Nell. I don't believe if we went to Japan it would make any difference. Those dreams would plague you just the same at night. And if it is decreed that anything horrible should befall you, your being in New Amsterdam wouldn't make you any safer than being here. We're not dealing with anything physical or even rational, you know. I used to hear that flute in the office in New Amsterdam with traffic thick in the street outside and typewriters going within a few feet of where I sat. Distance wouldn't avail. Our wisest course is to remain up here and do what we can to find the remains of this Dutchman and have them buried as he requests in his manuscript." "But that's just the point, Ralph," she rebutted. "What chance have we got of finding his remains? And this flute of his. You say Rayburn has made inquiries, and no one in the neighborhood can supply any information about this Indian who was supposed to have given the canister with the manuscript to Patwar. Well, what's the good of remaining in this wilderness to be plagued by this uncanny business if we haven't the faintest clue as to the whereabouts of Minnerwoman's bones and flute? So far as I can see, we may as well give up hope of ever finding these remains. We don't even know the site of this old plantation where Minnerwoman died. We can't just go searching blindly over hundreds of square miles of jungle. So why not get back to our civilized comforts in town? At least in New Amsterdam we'll be away from this dismal jungle and river. We'd feel more confident in our ability to resist this horror." This was a reasonable argument, but my host and I would not admit it, for we were both determined that a solution must be found to our problems before we returned to New Amsterdam. To leave Hood de Vries and go back to our homes in town would signify defeat, and added to this ignominy, we would still have this uncanny curse attached to us. I intervened and told Mrs. Nevinson, "I can see what you're driving at, Mrs. Nevy, but do you think you'd be happy if you returned alone to New Amsterdam? Anything could happen to you in the house there. Up here you're with us, and we can protect you if any physical danger arises. What about the psychic dangers? Can you protect me from those? So far as I can see, the only dangers we know of are psychic ones. Another thing, too," I said hurriedly, ignoring her sarcastic sally, "is that your presence here may prove of help to us in ridding ourselves of this nuisance." "In what way, pray?" she asked. "Well, for one thing, your own experiences are a little different from ours, aren't they? They represent an unusual aspect of the phenomenon, and we never can tell what we might be able to learn as a result of studying your case. Milton, you do speak like one of those heavy leather-bound tomes. You should have been a politician, boy, not an artist." From her tone and the twinkle in her eyes, I knew that her husband and I had won the debate. So I rose, deciding that this was the propitious moment to withdraw from the scene of conflict. To linger longer would have been tactically unsafe. One incautious word or gesture, and her defiance might have returned. I lit a cigarette casually and said, "I think I'd better go and see what Jessie is doing. She's been out on the veranda there for some time." Mrs. Nevinson added, Try and see if you can persuade her to have some Bovril. She only ate one sandwich at lunchtime." "I'll do my best," I said, and made my way onto the northern veranda where Jessie was lying in the hammock, slung up permanently out there. It may be well to mention that during the 4 or 5 hours following a manifestation, we generally relaxed our precaution of herding together and gave ourselves a little more freedom of action. We had discovered that the minimum interval between manifestations was 6 hours. In me, as I tiptoed my way towards the hammock, there was no suspicion of the new development in our weird experiences that I was about to discover. I tiptoed because I did not wish to disturb Jessie if she proved to be asleep. But I need not have bothered, for I saw her protruding legs move slightly as I got near. She was awake, but yawning, and her eyes were red as though she might not long since have awakened. She confirmed this when I inquired, yawning again and adding, "I even did a little dreaming." "Ah, dreams, not nightmares like your mother's, I trust." "No, I can't very well describe it as a nightmare exactly," she said hesitantly. "But I did feel a little queerish all the same, as if it might have turned out to be a nightmare if I'd slept longer. What time is it?" "About 2:30, I told her, and saw her sag with relief. "Nothing to fear until this evening." "How much do you want to bet it'll happen about 11 o'clock tonight, when we're all trying to get our beauty sleep?" "Such is life in Spookland," I replied. "Where are Mother and Daddy?" "In the sitting room. Your father and I have been having a strenuous time of it, trying to persuade her against returning to town by tomorrow morning's steamer." "She wanted to go back to town?" "I'm afraid so. Anyway, the danger seems past. I think we succeeded in getting her to see reason." She laughed. "Milton, in some ways, you're a big ass." "What do you mean?" She half stifled another yawn. "Nothing. It's just the way you express yourself." "Oh, just so. Anyway, let's hear about these dreams of yours. Have you forgotten them, or do you think you can describe them in detail?" "Why do you want me to describe them? You think they may mean something?" "We never know, do we? Can't afford to ignore the slightest circumstance that may help to throw light on the mystery." "It was nothing really startling," she said. "I've been having all sorts of queer dreams since things went funny with us up here." "Still," I said, "I'd be glad to hear what it was like." "It's getting hazy now, but from what I can remember, I was out in the veranda here in this very hammock. But it was at night, and there was a lovely moonlight outside. I was looking at the trees and the sawmill, and saying to myself what a wonderful night it was, and then it just occurred to me that it was late and I shouldn't be out here alone. I glanced at the window there." I should explain that the windows of the bedroom she and her mother occupied opened onto this section of the veranda. "And I saw Mother in bed. She seemed to be tossing about restlessly in her sleep. Not tossing about in the usual way, but as if, well, as if she might have been fighting with something lying in bed with her. I don't remember much after that." I stroked my chin and grunted. "Interesting, all the same. Especially the last part of it." "Oh, wait," she said suddenly, frowning as though trying to remember. "I can remember something else." She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I remember now. Just before waking up, it seemed as if the moon went under a cloud and everything grew darker around me. The last thing I knew was that I seemed to see a kind of shadow pass out of the window there and settle on my chest. But before I could get scared, I must have awakened." I exhaled a cloud of smoke, remarking, "I admit it could have been far more terrifying, but nevertheless it does sound a trifle out of the ordinary, doesn't it?" "You mean the shadow part of it, I suppose?" "Exactly. And the fact that your mother seemed to be fighting with something lying in bed with her. But don't go getting alarmed now. It could easily be some sort of postprandial semi-nightmare. That sandwich you ate might have done the trick. What's postprandial? You and your big words. She altered her position a trifle as another yawn attacked her. She was wearing a dress with an unusually low neck, and at the sink where her breasts divided I saw something that nearly caused me to drop my cigarette. I opened my mouth to speak, then checked myself. Fortunately, the watering of her eyes, consequent upon the yawn, prevented her from noting my reactions. Trying to control myself, I said as casually as I could, "By the way, your mother said I was to try to persuade you to take some Bovril." "Couldn't stomach such a thing now," she replied. "I'll probably take an egg flip before the afternoon is out. I'm not hungry. I say, Jessie, didn't you have a bath just before you came to lie in the hammock here?" As might have been expected, she gave me a look of surprise. "What a question! Of course I did. I was afraid to have one this morning because we were on the lookout for the flute. But as soon as everything was over, just a while ago, I had a bath. Why do you ask? Don't look as if I bathed." She tried to smile, but she must have noticed the tenseness in my manner. "What's wrong, Milton?" "There's a mirror in the bathroom. I suppose you sometimes look into it when you're drying yourself, don't you?" She went a little pink. "Naturally. Why shouldn't I?" "Did you notice anything in your chest today?" She bent her head and looked down at her bosom. "Oh, heavens!" She pressed the neck of her dress lower. "But I don't understand. How did this get here? It wasn't here before I got into the hammock. I'm sure of it. Oh, my God!" "It's much fainter than the one that appeared in your mother's ankle last Thursday night," I told her. Jessie's face had gone greyish with fear. "What can it mean, Milton? Why should it appear on me too? I haven't tried to burn the manuscript as Mother did. I haven't done a thing." I shook my head, leaning against the rail and gazing out of the still wall of green that loomed up on the edge of the clearing. The sawmill chugged away in even lulling cacophony, a jagged but hypnotic noise in the daytime silence. Then I became aware of a soft sound, so that I had to tilt my head. It was a distant wind traveling through the jungle. It seemed to approach us, getting louder and louder, as though it might be a shower of rain. Then it faded away and was no more. Behind me, I heard Jessie mutter, "That shadow in my dream, Milton. Remember what I told you? Just before I woke, I thought I saw it pass out of the window there and settle on my chest." It was all weird, but to be expected in an experience such as
My bones and my flute.